Hello and welcome to my easy to understand guide to Horizon Forbidden West, the video game, and media language. This video is going to be particularly relevant for you if you are studying AQA A-level, as it appears as a set text on that specification. The genre for the video game kind of falls under that action, adventure, fantasy genre. It's a little bit of a mix, and you can see a lot of the conventions of that genre or those hybrid genres within the game itself if you have a look at the walkthroughs and also have a look at the game cover. There's lots of exotic locations, for example, beaches, mountains, valleys, deserts, etc. And that's quite common in those action-adventure genre games. On the game's cover itself that you need to study, there's lots of language that points to that genre as well. For example, they use the phrase mysterious new threats to kind of suggest that there's going to be a certain level of thrilling violence in the game, but also that there's going to be a lot of mystery, a lot of enigma codes there. They also use the phrase discover distant lands and uncover the secrets, which are very much part of that kind of action-adventure genre. There's also elements of the post-apocalyptic genre in here as well. The game covers a sort of extinction level event where in America, AI or robots of some kind have taken over. The main playable character is a clone, and they mention issues such as a plague that's kind of wiped out a large portion of the population. They talk about climate issues, they talk about storms and the degrading of the biosphere, and those kind of climate issues and the kind of eradication of big swathes of population, very common in that post-apocalyptic genre. On the video game cover itself, they talk about Earth's imminent collapse, and they also talk about the ruin of the landscape. So there's very much this idea that the world has kind of fallen, and we're looking at this from a perspective of Earth in the future, where something bad has happened and left the planet devastated. There's lots of very filmic or cinematic media language in the video game, and when you look at things like walkthroughs and trailers, this is really, really evident. Lots of cut scenes that really feel like they've been lifted from a film. And the trend for video games becoming more filmic in nature has been on the rise in the last few years. Lots of audiences seem to really like this idea of playing through quite an epic narrative. The game is a third-person game, which means you can kind of see your character in front of the camera. It's kind of like a role-play game where you're playing as her, and you have particular quests that you need to fulfill. It's open world and single player only, so you cannot multiplayer against other people online. And this open world element gives audiences the freedom to explore a little bit. Enigma codes are really clear in the game and in the cover as well. For example, the gates in the game, they cut off the fortress, and so you can't actually get to the next stage. You can't see what's past the gates. And that creates a lot of enigma about what is behind them and what lays in wait for the player later on. There's also lots of enigma codes like what is this plague and where has it come from and how can they solve it? And can humans save the day? Can they beat these kind of AI machines? This is one of the first games to be released on the PlayStation 5, and as such it had a lot of new technology ploughed into it to ensure that the graphics were as higher quality as possible for the time it was released, and that really would have helped to have drawn audiences in. It added that element of realism, and although there's lots of fantasy-based landscapes and fantasy creatures, the actual kind of quality of the graphics makes it feel as real as possible. New technologies like motion capture have also enabled the publishers of the game to create really realistic movements amongst the characters, including facial expressions. There's lots of binary opposition in the game too. So obviously you have Aloy versus the machine-like creatures. And you can see these binary oppositions of the creatures versus the humans on the front cover and on the back of the cover as well. There are different tribes within the game as well, and those tribes often result in conflict between each other. There are rebels within those tribes too. And it's those binary oppositions which create conflict and therefore creates drama and excitement for the player. You can look at Todorov's narrative structure and how that might be reflected in the game. Todorov often believes that narratives start with an equilibrium, but actually at the beginning of this game, it really starts with a disruption to that narrative. So immediately players get told about a plague that's kind of eradicated a lot of people, and they immediately get given a kind of quest to go on. So the disruption is evident quite quickly. And maybe have a think about why that is. You want to engage players as fast as possible within a game. We often think of people who play video games as having quite short attention spans. Obviously that's not true for everyone, but the idea that they want something exciting straight away to engage them, it might help to draw them in and make them want to play on. The use of the colours and the costumes and the props within the kind of imagery in the video game and on the cover as well helps to create ideas about representations. It helps to tell us which tribes people belong to. It helps to tell us who are the kind of hero kind of characters and who are the kind of more villainous characters. If you have a look at the kind of dark, cloudy, foreboding lighting and colours that accompany the kind of machine creatures, and then the kind of lighter colours that accompany the kind of heroic characters. Setting and lighting is also used to create pathetic fallacy, which helps to suggest the mood and the tone of the piece, including when things are going to get darker. The camera shots help to represent them in particular ways, and I do have a separate video all about representation within this game. You can see how some of the camera shots help to connote strength, power, heroism, or villainy. The camera is often positioned on the same level as the character Aloy, which positions the audience along with her and makes it clear that we're supposed to support her as the protagonist. So that was my very simple, easy to understand guide to media language in Horizon Forbidden West. Don't forget to check out my channel. I've got lots of other videos about this video game and the other set texts for A-level media studies. And don't forget to subscribe for updates about when I add new content. If you've got any questions or would like to see any particular videos that I don't already have, just leave a little comment below and I'll see what I can do.